Hi, hello, welcome back to another week and another video. Today we are going over 3 moves that you can do anywhere at any time to help you get a deeper squat. When working in your exercise, you always want to be working for the greatest range of motion. However, we want to be working in a range of motion where you have proper form and proper stability. A great way to work on progressive overload, not only through your reps and your weight, is by working on increasing your range of motion in whatever movement it is. Today we're using the squat as an example. So if you started squatting and you were only squatting 2 parallel, if you increase your range of motion over time and were able to squat below parallel or deeper in your squat, you would be able to get stronger in your squat and get more overall benefit from the squat as well. Today I'm going to show you 3 body weight moves that you can do anywhere at any time as a way to warm up to go into your squat, even in your rest periods between your squats if you wanted to, or just on a day-to-day basis as you're doing any other stretching or mobility, if increasing your range of motion in your squat is something you are looking to do. These moves don't have to be done in any specific order. I would say it's up to personal preference. I would suggest that if there is one specific movement that stands out that you feel really tight in or that feels really good for you, use your body awareness here, scan that body to see how you're feeling, and if you find one specific move that is suited best for you, then I suggest that you spend the most amount of time getting good in that one mobility move or stretch. If you have any questions about these moves or any other questions about anything that I'm saying, leave them in the comments down below. If you like movement videos like this, don't forget to smash the thumbs up button and be sure to stay tuned for next week's video when we go over moves that you can do for greater shoulder stability. And that's it, so let's get into it. Okay, so first off we have our 90-90. As the name says, we are going to be getting into a 90-90 position on the floor. So you're going to sit on the floor, get on the floor however you're comfortable, sit down onto the floor however you're comfortable, but we're going to be working on getting these knees and these legs at 90-degree angles. First is I want to make sure that my shoulders are squared to my hips. Right now facing you, my shoulders are not squared to my hips. So to help you figure out how to square your shoulders to your hips, you can always lie your arms out to your side. I want my arm to be in line with my hip here or where my leg is. Your leg can sometimes be in a different position, so not always the best to go off of, but right here where my hip is, where my waist is, I want to be nice and in line. So you can use your arms as a reference point, but essentially I want my shoulders to be in line with my hips here. I don't want to be rotated any which way. This makes it easier to sit in the movement like this versus when my shoulders are nice and squared to my hips. So that's the first thing. Then I'm going to get my legs in my 90-90 position. So this knee should be directly in front of the hip and this foot should be directly in line with the knee. So I don't want to be open too far or closed too far. Again, you can always chase that 90-degree angle right here in the knee. Then I'm going to the back leg, same thing. I want this knee to be in line with the hip. A lot of the times the knee will want to be in front of the hip. The further you pull that knee back, the more challenging you're probably going to feel that it gets. So I'm going to get that knee also in line with this hip, and then I'm making sure that this foot is also in line with my knee. Once I'm in this position, again, I want to make sure that my shoulders are really nice and squared to my hips. If you need to lie your arm on the floor for support, that's totally fine. You're working on being able to get up into this position, and then we can intensify the movement by leaning forward into the front leg or also leaning back into this back leg. So I would work on just first getting comfortable in this position. You can swap on over to the other side. I might have to make a few minor adjustments here, but that would be a good way to make this movement a little bit more dynamic if you were choosing to do it for something like a warm-up. So I can actually just sit here and rotate back and forth if I want to. Try to keep the heels on the floor. I don't want my heels to move, and I'm trying to keep that torso nice and upright. If I need to modify it, I can just slightly lean back as I open up the hips and rotate from one side to the other. We can do the 90-90 like that. We can also work on our connection to our hip by picking our feet up off of the floor. So I'm going to intentionally draw this knee into the floor to help pick that foot up off the floor. You might not be able to do this. I was not able to do it when I first started. So you're working on trying to pick that foot up off of the floor, and then you can also work on extending the leg. I'm a little tight, so let's see if I can do it without resting my arm on the floor. A little bit more challenging if you, of course, don't rest your body weight. Same thing with the back leg. I'm picking that foot up off of the floor. You can see I'm kind of starting to lean forward here. I'm compensating. The further forward I lean, the easier it's going to be to pick that foot up. The further back I am, I can't. Right about there is where I got it. So you're working on trying to pick that foot up off of the floor. Same thing, you can work on extending the leg out to the side. Don't forget to swap over and do the same thing on the opposite side. Picking that foot up off the floor, picking this foot up off the floor, and then also working on extending the legs if you can. I'm moving kind of quickly here, but of course, like always, you can hold for a much longer period of time. Try and hold that foot up off of the floor. If you can't do any of these things, that's totally fine as well. You're working on getting as close as you can to being able to do these things. Just showing up and trying will get you closer to being able to pick the foot up off the floor. When I first started, I could not pick the foot up off the floor at all. All I did was come into the stretch every single day and just practice. And eventually, over time, that foot was able to just come up off of the floor just a little bit. So that is personally one of my favorites. That one is working your hips internal and external rotation. So it's a good big bang for your buck, hip mobility, flexibility type movement. Okay, next we got a downward dog. I'm gonna start at the top standing. Sorry, my head is cut off. And I'm going to bend over to touch my toes. So if I was doing this as an inchworm, I'm going to bend over to touch my toes, trying to keep those knees nice and locked out. If I can't, that's okay. I'm just trying to bend as little as possible. And I'm going to walk my hands out as far as I can, ideally into a plank position. So if I could walk my hands out to this plank position, then I'm working on slowly starting to inch my feet back up, keeping the legs nice and straight, trying to think about keeping the heels nice and flat on the floor. If I was just doing the downward dog variation, then I would find a comfortable position. The closer I am, the easier it's probably going to feel on the calves, the more you might feel on the hamstrings versus walking those hands out. We're focusing on the calves here, maybe the hamstrings too. Here I'm trying to drive those heels into the floor, and I can also work on pushing my body back into or behind me as well. I can also rotate from one foot to the next if I want to focus on one foot over the other. And then lastly, one of my favorite things to do here is if I'm envisioning my hands as my feet, I'm going to think about letting my feet kind of cave in a little bit, coming back to that neutral position, and then trying to turn my feet out. So if we're thinking about the tripod, if this is news to you, we're thinking about a tripod on the bottom of our foot, 1, 2, 3 points. I'm focusing on my weight being on the outer points here or the inner points of the foot. If I'm in my downward dog, I'm going to try to pull my feet out on the sides. Oh man, my knees want to break. Then I'm coming back to that neutral position, and then without going knock-kneed, I'm trying to roll to those inner 2 points of my feet. Lastly, we are going to be doing the squat stretch, and just as the name sounds, is we are going to get into a squat position. So I'm just going to stand up and I'm going to squat down into this position. But I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to hang out here, and I'm going to focus on a few things. So if you look at me from the side, when you drop into your bottom position, we don't want this to happen. We don't want you to be this fully relaxed kind of slumped position. So you want to work on trying to pull the shoulders up and keeping that nice proud position like you would in the bottom of your squat if you were squatting with a barbell on your back, right? We shouldn't be squatting like this. This should not be what we look like in the bottom of the squat. So we kind of want to mimic that here. When you're in this bottom position of the squat, we're focusing on a few things like driving the knees out. So I can use my elbows here to help push my knees out. I don't want those knees to be collapsing in either. Next, I'm also checking in with my ankles, so I can take this knee and drive that knee forward. My foot comes off the floor a little bit here, but I'm trying to keep that heel on the floor. I get a little bit of calf action here, stretching the calves and working on that ankle mobility to help me get deeper into my squat. Same thing, I'm gonna rock over to this side. This side clearly is not as tight for me as my right side. I'm able to drive that knee forward a lot further than the right side without the foot or the heel coming up off of the floor. We can take it up another notch and add a trunk rotation, one of my personal favorites. So I can place my hand on the floor here, and I'm going to open up and try to reach this hand to the ceiling. You ready to see my tight side? Oh, there's a crack. Notice how my knee wants to collapse in, so I'm trying to drive that knee out. And you can just kind of sit here. Sometimes I just kind of sit here and I'll rock side to side. I'm just doing my best to get very comfortable in this position. If this is too challenging for you, you can always hold on to something. If you're in a gym, then you have like a rig system that will be easy to hold on to. But you can always hold on to some pole or beam or even a weight. You might see this sometimes with like a plate. I don't have a plate, so I'm just gonna use this kettlebell, but this makes it a lot easier for me to kind of sit down here in the bottom of the position with a little bit of weight. So you can also add a weighted object if you wanted to. So those would be my top 3 moves: mobility moves, warm up, flexibility moves to help you get a deeper, lower squat. These are the things that I have done to help me get a deeper and lower squat, and they're things that I do on the daily. I think I do every single one of these stretches almost daily, at least every other day. I rarely often miss any sort of stretching in my day. So find the one that maybe you feel the tightest in or you feel the most value in if you don't have time to do them all in every single day, or do one on every day and just kind of cycle through and rotate through. If you still want to do all of them, find whatever way works for you. Find whatever way you can do these consistently, because that's how you're going to see the most value in them. Just show up. Even if it's for a minute is going to be better than absolutely nothing. Give these a try. Let me know if they work for you, or if you find any relief, pain relief in the lower back, the hips, the ankles, the knees, because these kinds of moves can help relieve any pain or tension you may possibly have in the body as well. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for next week's video, where we go over some shoulder stability moves that you can do anywhere at any time to just help overall improve your shoulder stability and possibly eliminate pain or restrict pain from ever happening. So if you like these types of movement videos, don't forget to smash the thumbs up button. Let me know in the comments down below what you want to see next, and until next week, I'll see you on Monday. Bye!
You stole my heart of gold after my silver soul. Can you dig any deeper now?